All right, everyone, welcome back into another live Patriots Beat podcast here on the CLNS Media Network. It is back down to two today, just me and Barth here. The crossovers are gone for the meantime as Patriots OTAs are now in the rearview mirror. Did they practice today? I don't know if they had
Yeah.
they practiced today.
Yeah.
They're originally supposed to practice tomorrow. We were supposed to get to be there, but either they canceled it completely or something happened. But OTAs are over
Could be
with.
one of those like field trip days where they go and do
Team
some sort of
bonding.
team bonding. Yeah. Team building thing.
I saw they were at Topgolf yesterday, so maybe they
Oh,
moved
so
the
maybe
schedule
they
around
moved it up
somehow.
and yeah.
So, but OTAs are over with, so not too much on the agenda today. We'll turn it over to you guys in a little bit for a Q&A, but we also had a few transactions earlier this week too that we didn't hit on in the crossovers. The Patriots waived offensive lineman Andrew Stuber. 2022 7th round pick, missed all his rookie year with a torn hamstring injury. Then last year, he spent the whole year on the practice squad.
I'm sorry. People see I'm on and they just text me stuff to see if I can react on the
And
air.
they
I
got you
usually
that
don't
time?
look at my phone, but I was trying to pull something up and yeah, they got me. So
Okay. But I thought you were laughing at our poor friend Andrew Stuber over there. Yeah, Andrew Stuber waived. They signed wide receiver David Wallace, not from Dunder Mifflin, but a D3 player.
WALIS.
Yeah, spelled a little different. A D3 player, so that's interesting. And then they signed another wide receiver today, so they have 13 wide receivers from Rutgers. I just had his name pulled up.
I think it's Jaquay Jackson.
Jaquay Jackson. So he was actually cut from the Falcons so they could claim Andrew Stuber from the Patriots. So kind of some roster shuffling between those two teams there. But
a non-trade trade.
Yeah. So 2 receivers in, Andrew Stuber out. We have 13 wide receivers on the roster now. They have 92 players, so they have to cut one to get back to 91. They have Jotham Russell still on that pathway program, so he doesn't count against the roster, so they can have 91. So we'll have a corresponding move here at some point. But, 13 wide receivers. TJ Luther was banged up. He didn't practice Tuesday when we were there, so that might have something to do with it. But 13 wide receivers is a lot of wide receivers moving forward here.
I would be very surprised if the cut is not a wide receiver. It's just too many. You're not going to be able to get everybody reps. And by the way, I just pulled up the Rutgers pronunciation guide here. It is Jaquay Jackson.
Jaquay.
So,
okay.
Yeah. You're not going to be able to get everybody reps. So if Luther's hurt, which I know our colleague Taylor Kyles has speculated, maybe that's the swap, right? Although they added Wallace, so maybe they wanted to add a wide receiver as well, something like that. Maybe it's Terrell Jennings, just thinking out loud, last man on, first man off, because I believe he was their last signing before Wallace, right? And I don't think they would sign Wallace just to cut him 2 days later, but I would think that there's going to be a wide receiver cut on the other side. This is just getting the number of bodies they want to have in camp. They clearly want to have a lot of receivers. They have, 12, right? But if Kendrick Bourne isn't practicing, we saw Javon Baker was limited the other day. That number in terms of the number of players you need to run a practice, that number evaporates real quick. Remember last year they had, who is it? The special teams guy, Raleigh Webb at wide receiver, because they just needed the bodies. Because with 4 quarterbacks, you want to run 4 different groups, especially if you're going to go split field. If you want to have 4 wide receivers available for each quarterback, or 3 wide receivers available for each quarterback, that's 12. That's 12 right there. So, yeah, we'll see what happens there. But my guess is, look, good size, and that's definitely something they're lacking at receiver.
6'2", 190.
Yeah, 6'2", 190. So definitely added a different body type of potential X. But I think this is, he's here for camp to help them operate through camp. And maybe, I just kind of narrowed it down where Kendrick Bourne isn't practicing. Javon Baker was limited. Maybe they don't want Pop Douglas playing in the preseason, given his injury history. Like, you're going to need the bodies to fill this thing out.
Didn't play in the preseason last year, Pop. So
that's right. He had 1 drive, right?
Yeah. If even, did he get 1 drive there at some point? he got the Randy Moss treatment almost, where they're like, we're just gonna hide you and not play you. But
Right.
yeah, a lot of receivers. Wallace is a bit on the smaller side. I had the roster 6 feet, 184. Again, D3 player, like dominated the D3 landscape.
Right.
34 touchdowns in 42 games. It's kind of what you have to do at that level to get a invite or make a roster. He was actually on the rookie minicamp tryout list, so they had some familiarity with him.
Yeah.
Jackson though was with UDFA with Atlanta though, so he's kind of an outsider. But yeah, a lot of wide receivers. We'll see again. Javon Baker was banged up. TJ Luther appeared in street clothes at the end of Tuesday's practice, so he's probably dealing with something. So, yeah, 4 quarterbacks. You need someone to work with all these guys. So, have a lot of bodies, but still 12, 13 seems too many for training camp. They'll probably cut that down at some point there.
Right. Yeah, and one might be today.
Yep. Yeah, they have to make that transaction, but we can do some Q&A. So if you guys want to start putting whatever in your mind in the chat from OTAs, mini camp next week, the Tom Brady night is coming up next week, even Boston sports. But while that happens, while people start putting questions in the chat, I'll just ask you, now that we're like 2 days removed from our last practice, how's kind of your overall feel on anything with this team, with maybe Gerard Mayo as a head coach, with Drake Maye, just any kind of big picture takeaway thoughts now from, we only saw 3 OTA practices, but did you just have any, do you feel better about the team if you can in a non-padded practice, but just any big picture things while some people start putting some questions in the chat there?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're trending in the right direction. I think Drake May's trending in the right direction. I think the receivers are trending in the right direction. I think the development, the emergence of Alex Austin is big. But the reason I just can't totally go, overboard with it is I still feel like they're not taking the left tackle position seriously. And I get that it's a long-term rebuild and they couldn't do everything this year. Like, I know that. And Will Campbell, Calvin Banks, we're going to talk a lot about them. We're probably going to do weekly check-ins on them on this show when the college football season begins. But you got to have a better bridge. You do. And it just feels like they're not giving the serious weight to the position itself and how they've chosen to address the position, which is moving right tackles over there. But, we talked about this the other day. Caden Wallace had a chance to get a ton of reps at left tackle and just didn't. So I just wonder where they're at that position, because I think that has the potential to undo a lot of progress, because I think they have made progress offensively. Maybe they came up just short of weaponizing the offense, but I think they have made a lot of progress on that side of the ball. But, I think Mike Reese had it in his notes this week as to just revisit it. They had the lowest pass block win rate in the league last year. They really, outside of Wallace and Okorafor, who are both going to be playing offhanded, they didn't add anybody to fix that. They're going to lose Trent. They lost Trent Brown. Connor McDermott was one of their best offensive linemen last year. They cut him. Cole Strange isn't going to be good to go to start the season. So there's a lot of questions there. And I still I can't go all in with it because I'm still too worried about the offensive line.
Yep. It's still, you want to give Elliott Wolf, like, in his team, like, I think we both think they did a pretty good job.
I want to give Elliott Wolf a lot of credit. And look, this isn't new. We've been talking about the Patriots left tackle position as a question mark since Patriots Beat started 4 co-hosts ago. So this isn't, and again, they weren't going to get everything done. This isn't me, and for the record, this isn't me sitting here saying like they should have drafted Joe Alt over Drake Maye. That's not what this is. But it's me saying they should have done there's somewhere between using the 3rd overall pick on the left tackle and not adding a single player with NFL experience at the position. There's some happy medium there you could do as a bridge that I was hoping they were going to do that they didn't do.
Yep. It's still probably the biggest regret. And I get, like, the free agent class wasn't overly sexy. Like, it was Jonah Williams, it was Tyron Smith, who's old. Williams would have to flip sides. I think the big kind of miss might have been that run of tackles in that late, like, back half of the 2nd round, early half of the 3rd round. The Patrick Pauls, the Kingsley Suamataeas, Blake Fisher went in that range, maybe getting more aggressive to trade up for there. But as Taylor likes to remind us, Scott Peters handpicked Caden Wallace, so maybe they're confident. But I think that's just not getting that pure guy who actually has left tackle experience is the big kind of second guess there of this offseason. So you mentioned Maye. Just again, we only saw 3 practices. Maybe that offensive line factors into this, but has anything changed on his timeline from your point of view? Seemed like the coaches, he's kind of been checking all the boxes. We talked to the offensive coaches on Tuesday. Alex Van Pelt said he's been very impressive. TC McCartney, quarterback coach, kind of echoed that and said right now they're all about tying the eyes to the feet. That's the focus, the footwork. They haven't really tinkered with his, that hitch or the throwing motion. That's, focusing on the footwork, but they seem to be pretty impressed with what he's done so far. He got the second reps over Bailey Zappi. They probably wouldn't have done that unless they felt otherwise. So has your timeline on when he might start kind of changed watching him for the first time here live in person?
Not really. I still think you're looking at, between a month and 6 weeks. They've used Halloween as kind of the late end cutoff of that. I still think Jacoby Brissett starts the season. I still think he should. I talked about this on Catch 22 with Evan earlier today. The big thing for me, I think he's got the baseline personally where he can go in there. I don't know that it'll be perfect, but you can only develop up to a certain point on the bench or in practice or in the preseason before you actually have to get into games and see game action. So I think he can be at that point by the time the regular season starts. But the big thing for me is I'm not putting him back there to get the crap beat out of him. And I'm not saying you have to wait until the offensive line is perfect, because then he may never start. But I do think you need a certain base level of protection where, people even say he's big, he's mobile, right? He can take care of himself. Well, Anthony Richardson was big and mobile. And how did that go? These guys are going to get hit. So remember last year, the offensive line was never great, but it was really bad at the beginning. And they kept using all these different combinations until they finally figured out, their best 5 that they wanted to go with. And at that point it got better. It still wasn't great, but it was better. And I think some of that was they found the best 5 and also just guys got used to playing with each other. I want to see them find their best 5 before they put Drake Maye in. And that doesn't mean that it's going to be this great group, but at least there's going to be continuity, because in addition to making sure you at least get it blocked decently, not being the worst pass blocking team in the league, the other thing is there's a lot of communication between the offensive line and the quarterback. And it would be nice. Drake Maye is already going to have a ton on his plate. If he doesn't also have to worry about, leading new offensive linemen every week, can't you see the world where we're there in mid-late October, maybe it's in London, and Mike Reese tweets out this was the starting offensive line in warmups. It will be the 5th different starting offensive line Drake Maye's had in 5 starts. I don't want that.
We've done that a lot the last few years.
Right. So I do think that they're going to have to kind of jigsaw it at the beginning, and we are going to get a few different combinations out of the gate because, and this goes to a bigger issue with the NFL. This is a lot of team offensive line is the last spot that usually solidifies because you can't hit in these practices. There's fewer preseason games. Guys don't play in them. Some of the offensive line position battles go into September because you really can't evaluate these guys until you get in a live game action. Again, not just a Patriots thing. It's exacerbated because of their level of talent, but it's not just them. But they are going to have to kind of jigsaw it and figure out, all right, this works, this doesn't work. We want this guy out there. We want this guy here, things like that. I hate to say throw Jacoby Brissett to the wolves, but figure that all out with Jacoby Brissett behind the line. He can also manage it better as a veteran. And then once you kind of feel good about, all right, Chooks is going to be our left tackle. We know that either Cole Strange is back or maybe Nick Leverett or Michael Jordan has solidified himself there. And then you're going to have David Andrews, Sidney So, Michael Nwenu. It's all right, we've got this kind of set. We know it's going to be the same guys out there. They're not going to go out and paint the Mona Lisa of offensive line play, but there's at least going to be continuity in a baseline. That, to me, is the biggest external factor, and a real external factor in deciding when Drake Maye gets his chance.
Yeah. I've been pretty, even before the draft, I think Drake Maye could start week 1, right? I think some of those issues,
I think he could in a bubble.
Really overblown. In kind of the pre-draft process. I think he's capable of starting week 1. He's really talented. He seems mentally tough. Go back to some of those games late last year at Carolina. you're right. Like, you don't want it to be a complete disaster around him. And I think he's
Right.
going to be able to handle a disaster a little bit better than, Mac Jones or Bailey Zappi. But like, still, he's 21. He doesn't have a lot of experience, even at college or high school, with like the COVID year he missed. So like, you don't want it to be a complete disaster. So if you want to give him a month, we've talked a lot about Halloween being kind of like that deadline. One thing
Yeah.
I don't want, which, Titus brings up in the chat here, is, with the receivers and the offensive line, give Brissett the whole year, get another low pick,
Right.
and then get your left tackle, your Kelvin Banks of the future. I want to see Drake Maye at some point this year, personally,
Yeah.
and like, I think it's best for his development still to get some game action. Hopefully, as you said, maybe they find their best five and the offensive line kind of settles down. But I think like sitting the whole year, I don't agree with that. I think at some point you have to get him in here. You hope the O line's not a mess, but even if the O line isn't like top echelon
Right.
in the league, or even half, like, I don't agree with sitting him for the whole year.
No, you're exactly right. And let me be clear when I say like sit Drake May until you figure out the offensive line. Like that's to an extent. Again,
Yeah,
I'm not. There is middle ground between throw him to the wolves right away and sit him until the situation's perfect. He's going to have to cover up some warts that you'll fill over time, but you just don't want him too exposed. And I think they can get to that point this year where he's not too exposed. It's not going to be great, but he's not going to be too exposed either. The reality is, it should be easier on him the later you go into this, because they're going to add, hopefully, a Will Campbell or a Kelvin Banks next year in the draft. At some point, you got to figure they're going to, unless one of these guys they drafted this year really pops, they're going to go out and do like the Bills did and trade for a Stephon Diggs, or like the Eagles did and trade for an AJ Brown, something like that. DK Metcalf. So it's going to get easier. That doesn't mean you can't expose him right now, and then kind of it's almost like training with ankle weights.
Yep, I agree with you there. So let's go over to the chat. We will do a little bit of Q&A. Again, anything you guys have in mind from OTAs that we've talked about, looking ahead to mini camp, even training camp. Tom Brady night again is on Wednesday. And as you type some questions in there, let's quickly hear from PrizePicks, which is America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 5 million members. And it is the most fun and exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports. In players, you just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. In the finals, they start tonight, and they mean more on PrizePicks, and so do the star players. You get boosted payouts on select basketball stars, such as Jason Tatum, that you won't find anywhere else. And they even have a Game 1 promo square tonight where Jason Tatum needs to score 1 point. Yes, that is just 1 point, more than half a point, and that square wins. You compare that with any other square in your lineup before the timer ends. They have Jaylen Brown, more than less than 23.5 points, if you like that. If you think Luka's going to go off, more than 31.5, or if you think Drew Holiday, Jaylen Brown's going to put the clamps on him, less than 31.5 points. So go over to PrizePicks, find a nice square there to pair with Jason Tatum. Again, he only needs to score 1 point. Hopefully that happens, or the Celtics are in some real trouble there. So download the app today and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, download the app today and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. PrizePicks. So we'll talk about the Celtics a little bit later, but let's get into some questions in the chat here about the Patriots. And we can start with the wide receiver room and tight end room. Speaking of Hunter Henry, is there a good chance Pop and Hunter Henry are the most productive receiving options, especially if Kendrick Bourne misses the start of the season? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say so. I think those are their two best weapons. Their two most explosive playmakers. Yeah, I think there's a good chance that happens.
Yeah, I mean, Pop's been unbelievable to start the spring, and it is a setting he should shine in. No contact, shifty, twitchy kind of receiver. Hunter Henry was good. They moved into the low red zone on Tuesday. I got asked in my last week, it was my mailbag, who leads the team in receptions, yards, and touchdowns. I think I went Pop for receptions, Henry for touchdowns. I think I went Polk for yards. I don't know. Do you have...
The only thing that I wonder about with Pop is, like, is he going to stay healthy? Is he going to play?
Yeah.
a full 17 games. If he does, he should lead the league in catches. But it's, we've seen him get hurt. He's a smaller guy.
Yep. That's definitely the issue there. But yeah, those two guys should be, if they're both healthy, Hunter been pretty healthy during his tenure here, but he missed some games last year. Looks good now. But if they're healthy, they should be up there definitely for productivity. Staying in the receiver room, has Jalen Reagor caught your eye at all as a receiver here early in the spring?
I haven't seen a ton from him. I mean, we got to see. He's going to make team as a kick returner. I don't think he's going to, he did catch a touchdown yesterday, actually. So I don't want to say he's been bad, but he hasn't stood out. But his pass to the roster, I think, is as much as a kick returner than anything else.
Yep. Or maybe if they keep him for kick returning and they cut Tyquan, like maybe he's just that package guy who can run fast, because that's really your only other like pure kind of burner in that room. So, but yeah, it wouldn't be anything more than 5-10 plays a game here and there. Then his primary value is going to be on special teams, as it was last year.
Yeah.
Another receiver, Jalen Polk, been kind of quiet. Seems like it's been kind of quiet on him from practice. He kind of falls in the Kendrick Bourne bucket for me, I think, where it's like he might not dominate the practice field, but once we get on Sundays in the game field, like it's going to kind of take it to another level, like kind of a gamer type. But I don't know. What have your early thoughts been on Polk there?
It's tough to say because he's another guy that's going to dominate when the pads come on. Like he's a bigger, more physical receiver. I think you do see talking about him as like leadership, lead by example guy. I think he's going first in a lot of the reps. He's taking everything 100%. So you like seeing that. But yeah, he hasn't maybe been targeted as much, but he hasn't. It feels like they're giving the opportunities more to the veterans right now. So again, it's not like he hasn't been. It's not like he's been bad. He just hasn't really stood out yet.
Yep. Yeah, not like obviously sounding the alarm. It's been 3 practices that we've seen, but he should be a guy, I think will be a gamer more on Sundays, and hopefully as the pads come on, we see more of that physicality and stuff kind of shine there. Another receiver, a lot of interest in the depth receivers there. Kayshon Boutte, been kind of quiet for him. He had the first day we were there, he had kind of like a nice deep diving catch from Maye, but outside of that, it's been pretty quiet there. And again, 12, 13 guys, it's tough, I guess, to make a big impact a lot of the times. But
I'll bring up this one too. Nobody's refusing to talk about him. There just really hasn't been much talk about in that regard. And I'll say this too. It's tough to see his path to the roster. We've talked. So they've got the 4 roster locks: Pop, Bourne, the 2 rookies. KJ Osborne's probably going to make it. Then you have like Juju Smith-Schuster's playing well, right? Does Tyquan Thornton, does Jalen Reagor fit in? So Boutte's got to be better than those guys. And then we don't know if he's going to be able to play. His issue after his arrest is still pending at the league office. So there's just so many roadblocks to him making the roster. He's probably more of a practice squad guy at this point. He'd really have to go to another level in training camp. And if he does, we'll talk about it. But he hasn't done that yet.
Could you see him having like a really good preseason just because he's going to play a lot and he has talent, right? But like, I don't even want to say like, I don't know how to say it. Like, he's going to have a lot of stats and maybe it looks like he's going to have a really good preseason and like still maybe not make the roster, but I don't know. I could see him.
I wonder if he can play well enough that they can trade him.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I just think like, because you have all these guys and depending how much they want to play the rookies in preseason, like you're going to have someone, as always, like take a load of these snaps. And he's someone who, had that high ceiling. Maybe he just posts a lot of stats in the preseason. It might not be like enough to make a push for the roster, but
the old Ralph Webb.
Yeah, it's just a lot of stats and it looks good. And then maybe, maybe someone does kind of take a chance and sees that and trades for him. That would be, you drafted him in the 6th. So maybe you get a 5th or just the 6th back for a guy you were going to cut anyway. Who knows? Maybe there.
All right, I'll go to this one. Somebody asked what H-back means because they've heard that when talking about Jaheim Bell. It is not the same as running back. It is not short for halfback. H-back is so. You know how like within receiver, there's different types of receivers. There's wide receiver, there's slot receiver, right? So H-back is within tight end. You have the Y tight end, which is the traditional. That's Hunter Henry. H-back is another word for that, like move tight end. It's like a Kyle Juszczyk type. George Kittle plays some H-back. He also gets used as a Y. He's kind of in between. So Jaheim Bell, yes, would be an H-back, but it's not the same as running back.
Yep.
It's closer to like receiving fullback, but it's not quite that either.
Yep. Good fit for Jaheim Bell. Definitely. It could be. Why does it seem the Patriots are hesitant to sign a left tackle with experience? There weren't that many just available in free agency this year. That was, I mean, again, it was Jonah Williams and Tyron Smith and Trent Brown, but they weren't going to bring back Trent Brown. So, yeah, I don't know anything there.
I mean, maybe some of it's money, but it just it's weird. I can't tell you. And it's not just sign. I mean, they won't draft one either. They won't draft a player who's played left tackle. They haven't done that in a while. I don't know what it is if they think that they have some like, oh, well, this is, one of the most expensive positions in football. And if we can figure out another way to add players here and develop players, like, I guess good luck with that. I don't think that's a viable strategy. It's a nice thought in theory that it's really hard to get good left tackles. So what if we get right tackles and turn them into left tackles? It's a great theory, but you have to actually be able to do it. And that's incredibly, incredibly, incredibly difficult to do. So I would think by now we've seen enough to know that strategy doesn't work, but maybe they're giving it one more. Hopefully this is the last try for that.
Yeah. Hopefully, as someone says, hope next year's left tackle class is amazing. Hopefully
the top of it is.
It's this, and then either Will Campbell, Kelvin Banks.
Right.
Who's the other? LSU is another one too, but he would be the right side.
He's a right tackle, so let's not do that. Alabama's left tackles in there. I think there's right now like 3 or 4 projected first-round tackles. Tyler Booker from Alabama, and you're thinking of Emory Jones from LSU. Yep. So Emory Jones, a right tackle. But those guys we're talking about Will Campbell and Kelvin Banks. Those are the guys. That's who we're talking about. That's the top tier. Maybe somebody else emerges during the season. We'll see. But that's kind of the group you're looking at right now.
Yep.
And I'll say along those lines too, where'd that go? Any chance Caden Wallace is their best option at right guard? Yeah. Very real chance. Very real chance he is, especially if they're going to play City. I don't think he'll outplay City, but if they move City to left because Cole Strange is out, then yeah, I think Caden Wallace has as good a shot as, Nick Leverett, Michael Jordan, Antonio Mafi, any of them to win that right guard job. But then Chooks has to be the guy at left tackle.
Yeah.
Or I guess Calvin Anderson, because you're running really thin there. And it would be a shame if they took 2 guards in the top 104 picks this year.
Yep. Yeah, you'd hope it's just Wallace can play one of the tackles, and maybe Layden Robinson takes one of those guard spots. But if it's your best 5, it's your best 5, and that's what you want out there. And maybe that means Chooks is playing really good at left tackle, and that's a bonus in itself there. So we'll see. We have your Jets fan back in the chat. No one cares about the Pats except himself, who is watching the Patriots podcast for the second straight episode.
Welcome back.
Yeah, Juan wants to know week 1 starting wide receiver group. So let's say Alex Van Pelt sends in 11 personnel. Who are your 3 out there to start week 1? Assuming, let's say Kendrick Bourne is healthy. Do both. Kendrick Bourne's healthy, and then Kendrick Bourne is on PUP or IR.
If Kendrick Bourne's out there, it's Bourne, Polk, and Douglas. If Kendrick Bourne's out, then it's Baker. Play the kids.
Yep.
Let them get ready.
Yeah, those are my 3. I'm with you there. How has Ramondre Stevenson looked? I mean, no pad, so it's tough to tell from a running back standpoint. I'll say he looks kind of thinner. I've thought looks in good shape. He's had he missed the last month, and that was probably an injury where he could have came back at the end of last year if if they were competing for the playoffs or something. So he's had all offseason to get in shape. He looks pretty good from a physical standpoint. So we'll kind of see more how that looks on the field. Again when the pads come on in training camp. But let's see what else we got in here. Heard about Juju. Think he'll stick, or is he just playing to boost any potential trade value? He had his best practice Tuesday that we saw, but it's still such an uphill battle, especially when the skill set is pretty redundant to Kendrick Bourne and Jalen Polk, and we prefer both of those guys to see the field over him. So I think the best case scenario is still he looks better in the preseason, looks healthy, looks a little more explosive, maybe, Drake Maye can make him look good, and then you get a 6th, 7th round pick for him and can just kind of trade him there at the end of the preseason.
Yeah, I mean, he could stick. There's definitely a path to it, especially if Bourne's not ready to start the season. But I still think he's on the outside looking in for now.
Yep.
All right, how about this one? Any idea what they want to do with Marte Mapu? I don't think they do. I think Marte Mapu, and this is very common when you have a coaching change and a GM change, that the previous regime brings in a player with a plan for that player. The new regime comes in, they don't have the same vision, and the player kind of gets left in limbo. I think Marte Mapu was drafted to be Kyle Duggar's replacement. I don't think they ever planned on re-signing Kyle Duggar.
Yep.
Bill didn't.
Bill.
Now Duggar's back. Peppers is here. Jalen Hawkins is playing well. Mapu's going to have a role on kick return and kickoff because he's got an ideal skill set for that new setup. But I don't think that he's on the same path that he was. But their plan was turn him into a box safety, like a tight end covering box safety. They have plenty of those guys right now. They should play him in linebacker, but it doesn't seem like they're going to do that either. So he's just kind of stuck in no man's land. And that usually means special teams.
Yeah. I mean, you weren't on it, but a lot of us last year when he got drafted was like, they got their linebacker with speed. And then
I was telling you, it'd be great if they did that. They weren't going to do it.
They weren't going to do it, and they didn't do it. And Bill, I agree with you. I think Bill just kind of looked at him as Kyle Duggar's replacement. So maybe there's a role, like, I'd rather have him like cover tight ends than Jabril Peppers or Kyle Duggar, but then you have to get all these guys on the field at the same time, and now you're playing Duggar or Peppers as like a deep free safety, which we don't love that either. So it's a weird kind of mixture. It's a weird role for Mapu at the moment. So I think he has been a little like he's had a few pass breakups throughout camp. I feel like he's been a little more noticeable. Most of those have come against like Jaheim Bell and the tight end. So maybe something he works his way onto the field, but it is tough to see with the safeties they have. Like, you're not taking Peppers, you're not taking Kyle Duggar off the field. So he seems just kind of caught in a tough spot at the moment there in that safety room.
Yeah.
Speaking of Stevenson, do you think a contract before the regular season is best for him? Again, he'll be a free agent at the end of the year, so extend him now or kind of wait, finish that when the year ends.
It's so tough with running back. I think you wait on running back, especially I was doing some like preliminary research for next year's draft class. We'll see what happens, how guys look this year, who comes out, who stays in school. This next year's running back class could be freaking loaded, man.
Really?
Quinshawn Judkins. Yeah. So this is just the top of the board. Quinshawn Judkins, Ollie Gordon, Travion Henderson, Amarian Hampton, Donovan Edwards, Trevor Etienne, Raheem Sanders, Jay Knott. Those are all top 100 picks. I think Judkins, Gordon, Henderson, Edwards, Hampton, all have a chance to be first round picks. I don't think there'll be 5 running backs in the first round. They won't all be, but I think there could be multiple first round running backs this year. Not that the Patriots should do that. They shouldn't. But when guys start getting, pushed down the board, if Antonio Gibson shows you a lot this year, and then you can add a guy like Amarian Hampton, who, by the way, you'd be reuniting with Drake Maye or Rocket Sanders or Jay Knott, suddenly not giving a running back $12 million a year looks pretty good. So I'd wait. I like Ramondre, I would, but it's just it's the business side of it.
Yeah.
You don't pay running backs until you absolutely have to.
Yep. I don't know. What was the Ron Wolf way with running backs? Did they pay them? Do you know? Green Bay?
But the game was so different.
The game.
I would hope
Green
they'd adjust
Bay
because they've had good running backs. They had like Ahmad Green. I just remember Ahmad Green. I loved Ahmad Green as a kid. He was great. But
who was before Aaron Jones? Oh, they had like James Starks. I remember random James Starks.
Yeah, but he was like their James White. Like I don't think he.
Yeah,
right. They had. Here we go. Here's their leading rusher. Right,
Eddie Lacy high.
Yeah, but they didn't pay him.
Yeah,
or they might have paid him, but not a lot. Ryan Grant. They basically have a new leading rusher every 4 years. So they had Ahman Green as their leading rusher from 2000 to 2006. But since then, Ryan Grant 3 years. Then they had kind of a little back and forth, bunch of different guys. Eddie Lacy for 3 years. Ty Montgomery in 2016. Shout out to Ty Montgomery. Jamal Williams. And they did keep Aaron Jones around, but that's post Yeah, it's tough to say, but I wouldn't pay running back till I absolutely have to,
Yep.
especially with this class. I mean, the fact that Quinshawn Judkins and Travion Henderson are on the same team, those are two of the three best running backs in college football. Some people might have them 1-2. I really like Ollie Gordon, although he's a little less proven. Quinshawn Judkins and Travion Henderson might be the two best running backs in football, and they're on the same team, which means probably neither one is going to amass tremendous production. So those guys are going to dip down a little bit. That's going to push other guys down the board. Draft-wise, it looks like it's going to be a good year to need a running back.
Yep. Yeah, I wonder if that's – I don't know who else is a free agent for running backs next year with Stevenson, but maybe that's like you let him test the market. And this year the market was really good for running backs. A lot of them got paid, but the draft was weak. So maybe with a stronger draft class, like the market and free agency isn't there as much. So you get them kind of cheaper or more for what you're looking at for an extension.
Early list here. Ramondre, Pro Football Network, they generally do a good job. They have Ramondre as the top free agent running back next year.
Okay.
And I think that's probably realistic because it's him, Najee Harris, Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones would be the only other one I'd put up there. Javonte Williams, James Conner, Chuba Hubbard, Khalil Herbert. I guess Nick Chubb, we'll see. Like, let's see where his knee's at. I guess he could be the number one. And then Alexander Madison.
Yeah, so I'd say Ramondre is one. Unless
Actually,
Aaron Jones has like a monster year.
Or Nick Chubb's. I'll tell you, if Nick Chubb isn't fully healthy and like washes out of Cleveland, he's gonna be a Patriot.
Yeah.
Because Van Pelt will bring him in and like, all right, let's see. We're not as the answer to replace Ramondre, but yeah, not a good year for free agent running backs. Great year for running backs in the draft. That usually means you don't re-sign the guy.
Yep.
But it's draft and develop, new philosophy. So we'll see.
Yep. Omari and Hampton would be fun. Reunite with Drake Maye or different position, but
Bryson Nesbitt. That's the thing. You could get
tight end. Yeah.
You could probably draft both.
Both of them, yeah.
You could probably draft both.
Nesbitt, third round, third round, would you say?
I mean, it's so early, day 2.
Yeah. They're both probably day 2 guys. So
if Hampton gets, pushed down the board a little bit, maybe you could get him early in the 4. I don't think it'll end up being the case, but also some of those guys might not come out. Some of those guys might stay in school. So we're really projecting tremendously far ahead here, but
yep.
There's a lot of running back talent in college football right now.
Yep. That's still crazy that the two guys are on Ohio State together.
It's insane. Like I was doing a Q&A on Twitter last week and somebody's like, Ohio State, like if Ohio State wins the title, how will they do it? And I'm like,
running the damn ball.
I'm going through it and I'm like, because they had an unreal offseason. They got a real play caller to take the responsibilities away from their fraud head coach. They got a real quarterback in Will Howard. Like, that's a legitimate upgrade over Kyle McCord.
They get Chip Kelly.
They did get Chip Kelly.
Yeah. Okay.
So they have Chip Kelly calling the plays, so the fraud head coach doesn't have to. They added Will Howard, who's a real quarterback, unlike Kyle McCord, who sucks. Their top 2 edge rushers, who were both supposed to be top 100 picks in the NFL draft, went back to school. They have the number 1 corner in the draft, whose name is escaping me. Or not, no, I guess Travis Hunter's number 1. I keep forgetting Travis Hunter's a corner. I just think of Travis Hunter as Travis Hunter. But they have Denzel Burke, one of the top corners in the draft. I'll phrase it that way. I know Will Johnson's up there too. But to me, the most exciting thing is they have these 2 running backs. They're just going to run roughshod over everybody. They should run for 300, 350 yards a game.
They should just be Michigan from last year.
They really should. And that's the thing. It would be. I don't think it was justified when Michigan did it last year. I think they did it because Harbaugh's a lunatic. Yeah. It would be totally just. Although Chip Kelly, it's not exactly Chip Kelly's offense, but
yeah.
I don't need to see Ohio State throw the ball this year. I'll still be and I'm not an Ohio State fan. I don't like Ohio State. I don't root for them. I'm not a Michigan fan either. I don't like the more prestige you have in the Big Ten, the less I like you. Give me in the Northwestern's the exception. Give me Iowa's fun. I like it when Iowa's good. I like it when Wisconsin's good. I like when Michigan State's good. Penn State, I can take or leave. Michigan and Ohio State bug me. I don't know why. Can't tell you why. They just do. But I will be watching a ton of Ohio State football this year because I want to see those 2 running backs pound the rock. I will be entertained watching them.
Yeah. And even if they lost Marvin Harrison, but Uboka came back, and then they have that other guy who you were texting us about, who's like,
Jeremiah Smith,
was it?
Yeah, let me find. They have the number 1 recruit in country. He got a 101 out of 100 score on 24/7. And I mean, so I'm not. It's Jeremiah Smith. I haven't exactly combed over his high school tape. It's tough to look at because you have to really know in terms of looking at high school tape, like the other high schools and their caliber of play, and figure out who the other players are. But everything I read about him, he's just faster Marvin Harrison Jr. So
That's scary.
yeah, exactly. So there's college football minute for you.
Yeah. Let's wrap up here. Speaking of splitting running backs, anyone emerging in that RB2, I don't want Stevenson to get overworked. Agree with that. Feel like Gibson, third down back at best. I don't want to pigeonhole Antonio Gibson to this third down back role. And I feel like that's kind of the easy thing to do because he has a wide receiver background, right? He can catch the ball. I think we talked a lot about like rotating drives to keep these guys fresh. I think he's going to be a really good fit with his speed as like in this outside zone, this wide zone run scheme, and then as a receiver either out wide, which we've seen a few times, and then out of the backfield too. So I think he's not just going to be like a James White third down back. I think he's going to be maybe this RB2 that you're looking for to pair with Stevenson to kind of keep Ramondre fresh.
Yeah, so Gibson is more than a third down back. He's a very well-rounded player, and I think they're going to use him as such. I think they are going to split situationally by fatigue, whatever, or sorry, by drive, fatigue, whatever. I don't think they're going to split situationally. I think you're going to see Gibson in every situation. I think you're going to see Stevenson in every situation. That being said, yeah, I'd like to see Gibson do more because they have run Stevenson into the ground each of the last 2 years, and I don't want to be yelling about that again in October and then be right in December when he's either just out of gas or hurt.
Yep. Agree with that. Last one. Diego is looking for tickets. What game would you project to see Drake Maye if you had to buy tickets to a game? I'm saying if he doesn't start the season, I like that. When is it? Week 5 and 6. I think they're back to back at home. I was trying to pull up the schedule. Week 5 against
5 and
Dolphins,
6, Dolphins
week
and
6
Texans.
against Texans, back to back at home. Maybe one of those.
I would say start in November. I'd say start looking in November if you really want to be sure. Like he could
if you want to
start
be
by then,
sure.
but if you really want to be sure, start in November.
If you really want to be sure, we'll see you week 17 and 18 against the Chargers and the Bills. But
depending on how the offensive line looks, that may not work either.
True.
Yeah, it's tough to say.
Yep. But Diego, if you're looking for tickets, you better be using Game Time, which is also the authorized ticket marketplace of the NBA, which makes getting playoff tickets even faster and easier because prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip off. And with killer last minute deals, all in prices viewed from your seat and the lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. They have flash deals to save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event, and zone deals to save if you're looking to sit in a specific section. And if you're in Boston debating whether or not to go to the game, maybe you guys 98.5 is at Hurricanes right before the game tonight.
Yeah,
or zoned out.
Hurricanes. Yeah, no, Hurricanes.
Maybe you're watching, listening to 98.5 at Hurricanes, and last minute you decide to go into the Garden to catch game 1. You can save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports. And even they have comedy, theater, concerts, tickets as well. Zach Bryan coming to Gillette soon. That should be a good one. So take the guesswork out of buying all your tickets and NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. So game 1 of the finals tonight. The long wait is finally over. It's been a while of no sports, so glad that's finally over. Yeah. But Kristaps Porzingis is healthy. He's in. Feels like a lot of people are picking against the Celtics, which I love but don't really understand. But where you at heading into game 1 tonight?
I'm saying Celtics in 6. Mavericks are the best team they've faced. And I think Luka and Kyrie can give them a game, but at the end of the day, the Celtics just have too much offensive depth. They're too deep. Derek Lively, like those guys, they're decent players, that secondary Mavs unit, but they're no match for Porzingis, White, Holiday. I think Al Horford going back to the bench is huge, gives the second unit another scoring option. So do you remember how, so like the Celtics series against the Warriors, It was a 6-game series, but it felt over like halfway through game 3. It was a 6-game series, but it felt like a blowout 6. I think it's going to be that, where I think the Celtics win in 6, but I don't think it's ever going to really feel that close. And I also think they'll win in 6 because I would love to cover a title clinching game, and game 6 is on the road. So they'll probably do that to me.
Yeah, I like them in 6 too. That was my prediction. I think it's I was drafting with a friend the other day because he was arguing like Kyrie's above Jaylen Brown.
Right, draft
I'm
the
like,
series.
that's kind of a wash, and I would say Luka's the best player in the series, even though I think it's close, but I would probably
I'd take Tatum. I think Luka is the best scorer.
Yeah,
Tatum's the best all-around player.
all-around player. That's fair, but
If I were to draft this, I would go.
the point is the top 4 are really close, but
The
then
top
you'd
4 is a
probably take
wash. Yeah.
4 or 5 Celtics next until you take Derek Lively or
PJ Washington.
PJ Washington in the corner, like that. So that was my kind of thing. Like with White, Porzingis, Holiday, rested, and now off the bench, Al Horford. Like that should be enough to really elevate you. Unless PJ Washington is like fire from 3, and
Well,
if those
random
guys
bench guy's going to heat up
yeah,
and
if those
kill
guys
the
beat you,
Celtics,
they beat you. But like this should be the Celtics series to lose.
Well, so the Celtics have 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. They have 5 guys averaging in double figures, and it's a super rudimentary way to do this. But the Celtics have 5 guys averaging double figures in the playoffs, and Al Horford's at 9.9 points per game. So we'll call it 6. Celtics have 6 players averaging, call it 9.9 or better. Dallas has Luke and Kyrie, obviously, are in the 20s. PJ Washington's averaging 13.6 a game. Derek Jones at 9.8. He'd be the 7th leading scorer on the Celtics. They only have 6 guys averaging over 8 a game, and then or over 5 a game, sorry. And then it drops off hard. So they just don't, I don't think they have the depth. Even if they are better equipped for Tatum or Brown to have an off night than the Mavericks are for Luka or Kyrie to have an off night. And that can mean a lot.
Yep. Luka's going to be so annoying though in this series. I can already tell. He's going to he whines a lot in general, but then like he's going to hit clutch shots down the stretch, and he's going to probably steal them a game or maybe 2, but he's going to be annoying to root against, but he is so good. So
yeah,
it'll be a fun series, but yeah, I'm with you. I'm going season 6. Are you worried Russ tonight with Porzingis at all? Like it's been
not really. I don't think he's going to play a ton. I think he's probably going to play 20, 25 minutes to ease him back in. So even if he is rusty, I don't think he'll be exposed a ton.
All right. So you like him tonight?
Yeah.
Yep. All right. So we'll obviously keep talking about that throughout as the series goes. Any Sox, Bruins? I don't think much news. Red Sox, I don't know what their record was.
The Red Sox are, if they're not 500, they're a game off 500. They'll be 500 again soon enough.
They're 31-31.
Yeah, right, and they'll be 32-32 and
4-game series against the worst team in baseball, the Chicago White Sox, and then they're at home against the Phillies and the Yankees, who are like the 2 best teams in baseball. So
yeah,
sweep the White Sox, and then they'll probably drop 6 straight to the Phillies and the Yankees, or somehow manage to go 5-5 maybe in that stretch and just stay perfectly mid. But
they'll be right around 500. I don't doubt that.
Yep.
Where's Olmark getting traded?
I hope it's New Jersey for the 10th overall pick. I don't know if he's worth that though, but Don Sweeney referenced the Corey Schneider trade in 2013 from a goaltender trade, and that was for, I think, the 10th or 11th overall pick. Now, the market's a little different nowadays, obviously, but I would love if they were able to get a high draft pick and then get like Tija Ginla would be, Jerome's son would be like the dream there at 10, finally get a skilled center in the pipeline. But I have a feeling it's not going to be that high of a pick, but hopefully they find something to make that either the cap space worthwhile or who knows. But I would like New Jersey there. I think they have the best asset to give. But
yeah.
Yeah. Anything else? Or is that all? We can wrap this up. You got to get to the Garden to cover game 1. So make sure you follow Alex on Twitter at Real Alex Barth. You'll have the introduction video for us. Player introduction.
That's the plan. That's the plan. They should go back to AO technology. They won't. I don't know why they don't. I'm sure there's like a reason, but oh boy, do I want to hear AO technology tonight.
Yep. And they don't have the trophy on the court, which I'm annoyed at.
Supposedly it was slippery, and that's why.
Okay,
But like,
they did the stupid.
you did the in-season, right? Exactly.
Courts.
Thanks,
like,
Brian.
You can figure out how to put a
or you know what?
trophy.
Project it on there, like you project the freaking ads on there.
Yeah,
it won't be the same, I guess, because it won't show up in photos.
They can't even put the finals decal on the court anymore. They have to project that so they can rotate ads in. It's just annoying. But follow Alex on Twitter at Real Alex Barth. He'll have Patriots Celtics coverage on 98.5thesportshub.com as well. You can follow me on Twitter at I am Brian Hines, patspulpit.com for coverage over there. We'll be back Monday and Tuesday, our mini camp. So we'll have Patriots Beat episodes. And then Wednesday, we'll wrap up mini camp and the Tom Brady night. So then we'll be back. We'll be at Gillette all day, so we can't do a show Wednesday. We'll be back Thursday. Then we'll do a crossover to kind of with Taylor and Mike to finish mini camp, talk about the Tom Brady night as well. So that's our schedule for next week. So make sure you're locked on to the channel, subscribe to the channel, turn on your notifications so you do know when we go live. But go Celtics. Hope everyone has a wonderful weekend, and we will see you at mini camp next week.
Bye.